every fintech company that exists today is an AI company. We can all agree that fintech is some of the richest data sets in the world. As we've been talking about personalization from a fintech company for many years, that every company ultimately becomes a fintech company. You talk about Elon Musk launching X, the X card. He's doing that because he has 4 million paying subscribers on X right now. Mark Zuckerberg trying to turn WhatsApp into a banking app. He's doing that because he has 300 million users. There are some founders that have shitty products that I know if they have enough data and get in the room with the right investor, they can raise $100 million round.
Yeah.
Why I still need to spend 6 hours on the phone with them to let them know my information. This is all information they should know, which is we're living in a world where they can know that. But I've also seen people that have built stuff and I'm like, dude, that's a hackathon idea. Like me and you could just lock ourselves in a room for a weekend and build that with Claude. And so at the end of the day, what is your unfair advantage to get to your first $10 million in revenue in 18 months, not 4 years?
Right.
I want some of the most cutting edge consumer brands coming in. Their entire economy and ecosystem runs on the top of fintech. I got into fintech because I thought it was quickest path to get people, educated around fintech and get them in a place where they can set themselves up for generational wealth. Build financial products that were built for underserved communities.
One of the most important skills in venture capital isn't predicting the future, it's knowing how to help people build it. Now, Drew Glover has spent his career backing founders, scaling fintech companies, and helping turn ambitious ideas into businesses that shape the future of financial services. Now, as the co-founder of Fiat Growth, a general partner at Fiat Ventures, and a host of FTW San Francisco, he's helping shape not only which companies win, but which conversations move the industry forward. Today, we're talking about what still creates a moat in the age of AI, maybe why storytelling has become one of the most overlooked competitive advantages in our industry, and how the right room can change the trajectory of a company and the future of our sector. This is Humans of Fintech, the show documenting the people building the future of money. Drew, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Yes, well, it's been like 3 years or more since you were first originally on the show as on season 1.
Season 1, and it was also the first time we officially met as well.
Yeah.
So, wow, full circle moment.
Full circle moment. All to come back at in San Francisco at the Golden Gate Bridge. You know, we're hosting FinTech Week San Francisco, September 29, 30, October 1. Before we get into that, I first want to talk a little bit about AI.
Let's do it.
I think that a question I've really been wanting to ask you is the fact that everyone really knows the story of AI. It's in the headlines. We're talking about it every day, all the time. We're in San Francisco. It's everywhere you turn your head. But I still don't think people know the fintech story that is kind of the bedrock of all of this technology. Do you agree? Why is this the case?
Well, I think it's for a couple reasons. One is every fintech company that exists today is an AI company. And we can all agree that fintech is some of the richest data sets in the world. And so what we can use fintech to do inside of normal fintech company is really exciting, because we've been talking about personalization from a fintech company for many years. I want to know why, when I've been went with a bank for 11 or 12 years and I go get a mortgage for a house, why I still need to spend 6 hours on the phone with them to let them know my information. This is all information they should know, which is we're living in a world where they can know that. And we've talked about this before. I do believe that every company ultimately becomes a fintech company. If you start as a fintech company, you are a fintech company. But so many other people don't start out as fintech companies, and they don't become fintech companies until they've hit scale, right? You talk about Elon Musk launching X, the X card. He's doing that because he has 4 million paying subscribers on X right now, right? You talk about Mark Zuckerberg trying to turn WhatsApp into a banking app. He's doing that because he has 300 million users, and the second he turns that on, can instantly turn on an opportunity to get small amounts of transactional revenue as well as a wild amount of data. And last but not least, you see Anthropic and you see ChatGPT turning on these abilities to connect to your finances directly into ChatGPT and OpenAI. They all have hundreds of millions of users now. And so by simply turning on that switch, they're making it so hundreds of millions of people are sharing their financial data with them. And it's doing two things. It's training their algorithm in a very valuable way, and it's giving users the ability to have a conversation with their finances. Me personally, I'm not necessarily connecting all my finances to either of them right now, but I'm sure at some point I will, because the value will outweigh what the cost of my data is.
Right. Well, and I guess then the argument could be, because the fintech companies, and especially the legacy ones, let's say an FIS or a Fiserv that have 50 plus years of historical data from these banks, right? And the institutions that they work with, but shouldn't, why aren't they the ones that are getting more, right? Of almost like the headline or the credibility for what the LLMs are now, just now.
Totally. I think it's a really good question. I will say a lot of these old guard companies, they're asking the question, do I build or partner? And in some cases they'll buy, but like the largest, most advanced LLMs aren't buyable at this point. They're just too big.
Yeah.
So the question is do I build it or do I partner? Some of these more old guard fintechs are saying I'm going to partner. And unfortunately, if you're going to partner with one of the sexiest AI companies in the industry, they are going to dwarf your story.
Yeah.
Because what is unsexy about fintech is traditional fintech.
Yeah.
And so they're naturally just not going to be able to show up the way I'm sure they want to be able to show up in the grander story. It's more of a PR thing, but even if you try to say, hey, like FIS and Anthropic or JP Morgan and ChatGPT, like we know who's going to win the PR strategy and the PR story organically. Secondarily, a lot of these old yard companies, I'm just not sure if they look in the mirror, they're going to say, I can compete. And I do believe what we're going to see in this next phase of AI is a lot of these companies that are sitting on 100 years of data are going to tell themselves, I don't want to share this with an LLM so they can train their models on the data that I have fought with blood, sweat, and tears to win over. And you're going to start seeing a lot of them say, I'm going to build internally. And I think there's going to be a whole community of startups that are going to come over the next decade that are going to enable that build. So a team like a Bank of America isn't going to have to say themselves, how do I go get 1,000 AI engineers? They're going to say, I'm going to partner with this B2B business that's going to enable me to build internally so I can keep a fortress and a gate around the data that is the bedrock of my business.
Right. That's the next phase, is everyone, all of these companies wanting to essentially, protect the data. I mean, it's
their IP.
Yeah. It's what any company, right, this is the moat.
Data is the moat.
Having the data, because it's what, to your point, why should a Delta or why should a company ever give it away? It still is like fascinating to me that our industry, our fintech space is like, I understand it not seeming as sexy, but like, when will we get to and maybe like your point of view too, from a storytelling perspective, like when and how do we get to a point where it is sexier? Because I'm still, as like a 10-year finance journalist, I'm having the same conversations, and it's fine. I've signed up for it. I'll have it for the next 20 years, whatever. But like, although it might kill me, but yeah, it's like, how are we still saying like financial guidance? We're just getting around to financial guidance and personalization. Exactly.
Yeah.
How can my, bank account have decades of information on me and still not know what my next best action is? But we needed an LLM to come do it. It's still like,
I know,
off for me.
I will just go back and state, there's different versions. I'll keep using the word sexy. Like, obviously, Anthropic and OpenAI might see an FIS or a Bank of America as incredibly sexy. Everyone in San Francisco might not believe that Bank of America is sexy, right? From a business perspective, that data, that company is incredibly provocative, and that data is so valuable. But remember, like, the reason why fintech historically, specifically B2B fintech, again, we talk about the old Chimes of the world when the neobank craze was crazy. Everybody's like, oh, this is incredible business. No one talks about the fact that like all a Chime was a bank with a really smart marketing wrapper around it. That's what made it sexy. But a lot of B2B fintech just doesn't get the commercial love that it should, because it's a very complicated business. Unless you grew up in the fintech space, you just typically probably don't understand how FIS makes money if you're just someone that is working on a marketing project at an ad agency or something like that. From the standpoint of personalization, it's unfortunately we did need an LLM. And as someone that has been so close to fintech as long as I have, that is the only thing that has made it possible.
Yeah.
And that is because what we used to work on the back of is getting millions of data points and having to have humans to structure that data. where now we get millions of data points and we're 2 or 3 sentences away from prompting it to do what we want it to do.
Yeah.
And so it used to be a people problem. Now it's a prompting challenge. And that has completely changed the industry.
Yeah, I mean, all really good points. It makes me almost want to like rewind a little bit because, as I mentioned, it's been years since you've been on the show.
Yeah.
So, given everything we've already talked about, remind everyone, what first pulled you into fintech?
Oh man, so like first of all, my background is just all over the place. I used to like bang my head against the wall because I was like, I've been in another job for 2 years. Now I'm going to completely change industries. And so, I finally got to a point in my career where I felt really confident in my ability. I knew I could sell really well. I knew I was a really great marketer. I knew I was a really good product mind. And I knew that I didn't want to I knew I wanted to make a lot of money. Full disclosure.
Same.
But I knew I wanted to do that without losing the soul of like where I came from. I grew up in a very civic-oriented household. My dad ran a nonprofit that helped people find affordable housing in the Bay Area. My mom was a principal for 30 plus years in Oakland. And I was like, I want to do something that gives me the lifestyle I want to live while also gives back to the communities that I think are most important. So initially, I got into fintech because I thought it was quickest path to get people, educated around fintech and get them in a place where they can set themselves up for generational wealth. Secondarily, I wanted to make sure that I was putting myself in a place where I could build financial products that were built for underserved communities. Because one thing is we were moving into the digital age and there was a huge tech divide just 10 years ago, 20 years ago, where the whole world didn't have Wi-Fi. And so imagine living in a world where you're managing your bank account on a computer and someone else is literally just like writing checks because they don't have access to Wi-Fi. Now we're moving on to new challenges, and I just found it really invigorating to try to solve those challenges through the lens of trying to positively impact the communities that need it most.
So this is a lot of what we bonded over when we first met all those years ago, because I was like, oh, I can write about an industry that is fundamentally showcasing all of these different pathways to access to wealth, to that generational wealth that I too was so unfamiliar with, and so many were unfamiliar with. Okay, so now fast forward to today, do you still feel that way?
Oh, 100%. I will tell you that the world doesn't make it easy to feel that way.
No, it doesn't.
And 3.5 years ago when we were sitting down for, Humans of Fintech, we were living in a world where like DEI was like king. We were living in a world where money was being given out to underrepresented fund managers like myself. The story is how do we make this world better? That was a wave that, from the day it started, which was like a kind of like a post-George Floyd kind of moment.
Right.
I looked at everyone, I was like,
COVID.
Take advantage of this moment because it will not be here a year and a half from now.
Yeah.
And I have family and friends that are deep in the nonprofit space, and they're like, we're going to sprint and try to get as much money as possible because in a year and a half, this won't be here. And lo and behold, it ended. And so, yes, to answer your question, I'm still very much committed, and I spend a lot of my days trying to make sure I'm investing and improving the positive impact on low income and, marginalized communities. But again, it's my team and just a few other people out there really trying to fight for it.
Yeah.
And I don't have other people reinforcing our own thesis.
There's some journalists here and there doing it every now and then. No, but
you will find them. I know who they are, but I can also
Drew
count
finds
them.
There's me, my whole team, Nicole, Fintech is fam. I mean, but for all seriousness, to your point, I think the pathways to getting to where we want fintech to ultimately go have changed, right? Even for me, the original thesis of Fintech is Fem is always there and always has been, but even with the evolution of what we've been building together with Fintech Week, with FTW, New York versus San Francisco, it has really, for me, felt even more in alignment with why I originally started my own media company to begin with, which was to make sure that fintech has its place in the zeitgeist.
That's
and
right.
to make sure that that story that drew us into the fintech world to begin with is shown on the best stages and the best places in the most iconic cities, right? Is getting the money it needs to. And I think a part of the pathways of why that is how that looks different is that it's just not as traditional as we thought it was. It just doesn't look the way it should have or the way we thought it was going to. Exactly. We didn't know that the DEI conversation was going to kind of cease to exist and go in a different way. But because it went away publicly doesn't mean it went away in its entirety, right?
Totally.
You and I are still here. Our businesses have grown. We have grown. We've only gotten better, right? We almost didn't even need it anymore. We outgrew it in a way but we just adapted and changed to madness and the chaos of the world and did what we needed to do. And I think that part is important. And I think now from like the VC perspective, I think you're seeing that in the ways that you can invest in all these different segments that ultimately always lead you back down to fintech.
It's true. But I will also state, when that movement was at its height, we were also we were in many cases overly investing in direct-to-consumer fintech. And the world can understand and feel the impact of direct-to-consumer fintech more than any type of fintech. If it's a bank, if it's a savings tool, it's a money management platform. For the last couple of years, we've been in the B2B and B2B2C revolution of fintech. That impact isn't seen as much as it's happening. And that's just mainly because, like, from a marketing perspective, a B2B company is trying to market to other businesses. They're not marketing to the people. So in a revolution where a Chime and a Varo Money and a Revolut were scaling, they were putting $100 million a year into making so every single person understood the impact they were driving. Where, again, if we're talking about it, even in FIS, like FIS, businesses know FIS like it's an institution. Someone off the street would be like,
these people aren't
what
gonna
do
know.
they do with money? You know, so it's just a different world of marketing as well, and storytelling. They're telling a story to other businesses. They're not telling a story to individuals.
Finance doesn't just move money, it reveals what matters. And right now, what matters is AI. We're watching AI reshape everything: how we build, how we work, how we make decisions. But fintech is where it actually shows up: in payments, in fraud, in lending, in the systems we rely on every single day. And in 2026, the conversation isn't about hype anymore. It's about what's real, what works, what scales, and what actually drives outcomes. Agentic systems, intelligent infrastructure, AI that doesn't just assist, but operates. If you want to understand where this is all going, not in theory, but in practice, there's only one place to be: FTW San Francisco, where the builders, operators, and investors shaping this next chapter of fintech actually come together. Because fintech isn't just part of the AI story, it's where it all comes to life. So if you want to see what's next, you need to be in this room. I'm Nicole Casperson with Fintech is Femme, and I'll see you at FTW San Francisco. Do you think that we're entering almost like a next phase of storytelling and marketing where it's no longer one or the other? You're going to have to start having a bit of both, i.e., you're going to have to market to businesses while also having the masses also know who you are. And I think the reason feeling that or thinking that is because, if you only needed to market to B2B, it's like, why are there Subway ads?
Totally.
For a B2B SaaS product.
Yep.
Why am I seeing these things everywhere? What is this branding for if not to, you must want something out of it, right? Even if your product isn't direct to consumer. Like, that's where I'm kind of wondering the next phase of this like B2B marketing world is going, is like, okay, we've niched down and that's like the enterprise business, and now people want more. Like, they want more respect, they want more, whatever that is. But do you think that's happening?
I think marketing is definitely shifting. Obviously, you live in New York, I live in the Bay Area. Like, no matter where we are, we're going to see a crazy amount of B2B and B2B2C and direct-to-consumer ads, because we live in a place where, from an awareness strategy standpoint, I'm going to take a risk that if you're driving across the Bay Bridge or the Golden Gate Bridge, you're probably a founder or a business owner, or out of 1 million impressions, 10,000 of them will be people that could generate millions of dollars of pipeline for me. One thing I do believe, though, is what used to be is we are only going to try to scale a brand through marketing is now, how do we scale the executives? How do we scale the founders? Because, and we've talked about this many times, like, if you're a founder or an executive, you are an influencer. If you have 0 followers or 200,000. But if you have 0, you're really fucking up, because you should be influencing, because you are influence. And we hear about it all the time. There's been a huge pullback in like LinkedIn spend. Like, what used to be like, oh, let's do account-based marketing and spend $500,000 on LinkedIn. People are now saying, no, I'd rather spend that money lifting up or boosting one of my founders' posts, talking about the product. B2B companies and even B2C companies used to have this faceless brand where it was just the brand itself. It was a logo. Now the face is becoming the founder. It's becoming the person whose idea it was to get this thing off the ground. And so I think we're going to see a lot more founder-led strategy. That's why we're seeing VCs on Instagram trying to build a personality. That's why we're seeing founders on LinkedIn and TikTok trying to build a personality because they're realizing it takes time to compound, but once it's there, it becomes one of your best growth marketing channels.
Right. Well, then does that almost too bring us back to the original point of at the top, which is it helps with the distribution, right?
Oh, for sure.
You know, like at the end of the day.
Distribution and data are the only moats that are left. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've met some founders that have built so much shit where I'm like, it could still be replicated, but it might take someone 6 months. But I've also seen people that have built stuff and I'm like, dude, that's a hackathon idea. Like me and you could just lock ourselves in a room for a weekend and build that with Claude. And so at the end of the day, what is your unfair advantage to get to your first $10 million in revenue in 18 months, not 4 years?
Right.
And then also the other one is how can I get enough data to make it so no one can replicate it?
Right.
And once you're able to do that and also take your existing proprietary data, mix it with public data to create new, really interesting, unique data sets, again, that is a superpower. And so as I look at businesses, I'm like, one, what kind of data do you have that the world needs? And number two, what's your unfair advantage to get to 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, $100 million in revenue faster than your competitors? And last but not least, it is storytelling because it goes back to, there are some founders that have shitty products that I know if they have enough data and get in the room with the right investor, they can raise a $100 million round.
Yeah.
Right? And that all comes with storytelling, charisma, like being aggressive, always playing on offense, having that like, I cannot pass on you type of founder mentality.
Yeah, exactly. Should we talk about some of the founders that would maybe fit that mold and be on our stage?
Yeah,
at
do
FinTech Week?
Yeah.
All right, we wrapped up New York in April. It was incredible. It was our first time hosting the FinTech Summit by Fiat Growth in New York City. What a debut.
Huge.
You had. Did you know that Taylor Swift got married at our venue?
Yeah, because she
must have known.
She saw the summit.
Us. She must have saw us.
It's the only reason. Yeah.
There and so imitation is the highest form of flattery, they say. So thank you, T Swift. But we had some amazing executives, founders, folks in New York. I guess how are you thinking about that translate into San Francisco? I know on my end, I've been thinking a lot about having more big tech representation, having more of like the OpenAI and Anthropic and the DoorDashes and the Ubers and, the big tech that is here in San Francisco, put them in the same room with some fintech founders and like what happens, right? Or something like that is kind of what I'm noodling on, but how are you thinking about building your agenda?
I mean, I 100% agree. I mean, we're living in this agentic world. We're living in a world where it's both agentic. We're also seeing this like robotics. I mean, I'm sure you just saw today, like DoorDash just launched, they just became an airline and they just got their drone license. They're a legit airline commercial carrier now because now they can get you your food in 20 minutes instead of 30 minutes
via
if it's
drone?
an hour away. And like, so I'm just sitting here and I'm like, because first of all these really incredible companies, Airbnb, DoorDash, Uber, they all have their own AI labs. They're all doing cutting edge stuff. They all have this like fintech element to them because they're running marketplaces where money is literally the center of everything that they do. And they're all out here in San Francisco. So yeah, I mean, I want some of the most cutting edge consumer brands coming in. Their entire economy and ecosystem runs on the top of fintech. And also that are just like quadruple down on AI. I think there's going to be so many fascinating conversations that happen. And I think pairing them up with other really incredible fintech leaders will spur these discussions about the literal economies that they've built inside of their massive ecosystems.
I think in New York, a standout for me was definitely the opening fireside with High Note, CEO, and the head of financial services at Lowe's.
Yes.
I remember when we were first talking about that and being like, Lowe's? Yeah, let's go, right? But it's what's so cool, I think, and I think that differentiates us as well from some of the other events out there and conferences in our space, because who else is thinking like that, right? Like thinking of putting these types of people in a room together and also doing it in a way that's like, I love our big, small size, right? We do about 200-300 people per day in the room, big enough to have an impact, intimate enough to where you could almost talk to every single person there if you like work hard enough at it, but or at least talk to enough there. And I mean, I had some great feedback in New York of folks who, they would come up to me at the end of one of our summits and be like, I just closed a bank partner today while I've been here, or like, I just closed another retainer or this or that. And so that I now am seeing it as like moving the industry forward in conversation, but also this like deal closing room. And I want that for San Francisco, like for this ecosystem, for this fintech AI culture mix that is still kind of finding its footing and placement in our world, it seems.
I agree. I think what's really exciting is, I think our format is really strong in terms of keeping the size into that 2 to 250 realm. We get really obsessive about who we have in the room, making it so not just everyone can talk to each other, but everybody in that room should be talking to each other. And if they do, odds are they're going to find some connection point for their businesses. And beyond that is connecting fintech to all these adjacent industries.
Yes.
Like one thing that I love about fintech is it cross cuts across all these different industries. So you talk about a high note and a Lowe's. Who would think Lowe's is partnering up with a financial infrastructure like High Note, and what value that brings to Lowe's? And having more conversations like that, I think, are really, really important. And then last but not least is the fact that we get to do it across 3 different days. We have the FinTech Summit, we have the Leadership Summit, we have the Security Summit. And these are 3 things that are massively important to every single FinTech that lives. Getting in front of those people, learning about those topics, and being able to create partnerships out of thin air.
Yeah, exactly. So well said. Drew, I have some lightning round questions here as we wrap up. I'm think you can maybe answer these. Sorry, I don't know what your non-disclosures look like, but I think we'll be all right. What is a fintech company everyone should be paying attention to?
I'm just gonna say a company that I just did a ton of research on, which I think is really interesting. It's actually it's a company called Fora Travel.
Okay. Oh, yes.
I did not invest in this company, but it's a company called Fora Travel. Basically, they are like the Shopify for travel agents. So if you're like that type A person that just does travel for your entire family, you can basically sign up and become a travel agent and make commissions on every single person that wants to either copy your trip or a trip you want to do. I think it's a really fascinating industry and a really interesting crosscut into fintech.
All of the financial transactions.
It's travel,
that
it's
can
rewards,
happen.
it's transactions, it's payments, it's a number of things.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's a fun answer.
Yeah.
All right. Obviously, we are hosting FTW San Francisco, and you've joined as a host and co-producer. Why did you say yes?
Well, I said yes because you said yes, because I begged you to partner with me. No,
because we begged each other to work together in some capacity, and this is where we learned.
Well, I said yes because community to me is the most important thing. I also believe community is a moat. I don't talk about it as much as from a data and a distribution standpoint, but it is connected to distribution. And the reason why I don't bring it up is because it takes a shit ton of time and effort and dedication and years to build a community that is obsessed with each other.
Yeah.
And so I said yes because I'm committed to the long-term commitment of community, but once you lock it in, it becomes something that people can't replicate and becomes something that is much larger than you.
Yeah, I agree. All right, you've been to countless conferences. What's broken about the traditional event model, and how have we addressed that?
Great question. I think the event model has been breaking for many years.
It has.
And I think it's finally in a place now where you can show up to an event and know if it's a money grab or if it's truly about relationship building.
And people.
And so I think one thing that me and you with FTW spent a lot of time on is making sure that we were creating an environment that felt like an opportunity for everyone versus this industry event that people feel the need that they have to go to.
Just because.
Exactly.
Right.
And so for us, again, we don't want to have a 5,000 person event. It being 250 pretty consistently, maybe more over time, depending on what we do. But whatever we do, it'll be organized and curated in a way where it feels exclusive, it feels special, and feels like opportunity is endless.
Yeah, for me, that was always the goal, right? It's like planning any good experience or event. It's like you want, and I actually kind of felt this too, just having gotten through my wedding. You probably you probably know this too, which is one of the best compliments I get from whether it's FTW or my wedding is when people come to me and say I really felt you throughout the whole experience.
Yes.
And I felt you, I felt Drew, I felt Francis, I felt everyone, and that I think is unique and special and very different, exactly, and will always center around the people. And I think in a world where everyone's just exactly obsessed with the money grab, I know that you do what's right by the people, and money comes. And I think that gives us a full circle moment as well to why we started in fintech to begin with, how we went from Drew being on episode 1, when I think you told me about when Drew introduced himself, he was like, "Hi, I was a football player, and now I do this, and and all the many things, and now we produce FinTech Week together, which is really amazing.
Still
and
requires
incredible.
a lot of athleticism.
Yeah, actually, it does. It does. Someone's got to carry some boxes at some point. But thank you so much, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Humans of Fintech. You know what? Okay, my final question for you before Anton kills me. All right, you know what? When someone walks away from FTW, what do you hope they leave thinking differently?
I can't do it alone.
Community, baby. All right. That does it for this episode of Humans of Fintech. Thank you so much, Drew, for joining us at the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yes.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Humans of Fintech. If you loved this and want to hear more from leaders across the fintech industry, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and be sure to sign up for the Fintech ISFM newsletter, which you can do at fintechisfm.co. See you next time.